I think he'd be very focused on human trafficking. I think that's something he'd be keenly interested in. I don't know though. It's so difficult to say. I think he'd
Right.
be for victims of injustice.
Well, welcome to the Matt and Monica podcast. We have an incredible guest today. As obviously you can see by his hat, he's from Angel Studios, and he's a producer of the movie Bonhoeffer, which I believe comes out November 22nd, not mistaken.
Yeah,
and
right.
it's well, they sent us a screener about 2 weeks ago, and we watched it, and we really
That was
enjoyed it.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
We love that kind of like historical stuff. So we were really, really into it.
John, I'm going to allow you to kind of introduce yourself and talk about the movie. I'll let you start it off, and we'll kind of go from there if you're all right with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks very much for having me on, Matt and Monica. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our film. I can't believe it's 3 weeks from the official unveiling, the release in theaters nationwide. I've been working on this project for 12 years, and it's amazing to see it finally come to fruition. So
12 years.
12 years. Yep. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be one of the producers of the film. Been with it ever since the lead producers got the idea to do a major motion picture about Bonhoeffer, and been with it through the fundraising, the hiring, and replacing of teams of screenwriters who all took different approaches to the story, culminating in Todd Komernicki, our genius writer-director, unlocking the secret to a really thrilling cinematic story about Bonhoeffer that unfolds in this beautiful film, which is, I'm so proud to be associated with it because it was really done at the highest levels. We had an amazing cast and crew, and just wonderful, wonderful, creative, talented people. And the end product, I think, speaks for itself. It's a beautiful film.
Absolutely.
I thought the quality from the ground up was absolutely incredible. When I saw the previews for it initially, I was like, that looks incredible. And
we were like, we got to see that.
Yeah. I didn't anticipate on seeing it early by any means, but we really appreciated the opportunity.
Well, that was one question I had, was like, how long did it take for you to do research and all that kind of stuff? How did you even know you wanted to get into that type of stuff? Did you normally do that kind of, get into that movie scene and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think Bonhoeffer's story is, he's one of those guys you read about it and you think, well, wow, it sounds like there's a film in there somewhere. But it's always difficult to take someone who's lived such a full life and reduce their story to 2 hours on screen in a medium where you're mainly showing and not telling. It was a challenge, but I think we've really unlocked it, and I think the journey that he takes on screen is really compelling and really interesting, and at the same time sort of timeless, but also very meaningful for our own era and our own times. So I think anybody who reads about Bonhoeffer or reads his books and wants to go deeper, sees something in there, feels something in there that's really cinematic. I mean, he faced down history's worst tyrant and an evil regime, and doubters within his family, within his church, within his own church leadership, but overcame all of those things and ultimately triumphed in a surprising way after a lot of opposition and a lot of heartache.
Yeah, and we have a heavy focus on adversity and overcoming adversity, and I think that was one of the things that really attracted me to the movie. Somebody that was in a position that was just so uncomfortable, and it was very, very profound just to see, the way it went about, and the way he was able to, just go about everything from the ground up, and, speaking his mind in such a difficult time, especially with the church.
I think you can't help but get emotionally invested in the movie the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I always felt like bad for him, or I was like, all right, he's going to do this, like through the whole thing.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I know Bonhoeffer faced incredible adversity even within the church. What was the most challenging aspect of his story to portray authentically in the film for you?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I want to answer that honestly, but also without spoilers.
Right.
There's so many great moments in there. I think, I remember we were doing the watching casting screeners from the actors that we asked to pitch to play Bonhoeffer, and I think we were all electrified by Jonas Dassler's performance, the young man who plays our lead. He's just such a riveting actor, and he's so good at conveying every emotion. That you just know exactly what Bonhoeffer's feeling on screen. I think, and I wish we could ask him this question because it's such a good one for an actor. I think I've got to believe the hardest thing to convey is that moment when you're feeling the Holy Spirit just come upon you and direct you to do a certain thing, or when you're hit by a realization that that's divine. Acting that out, what does that look like on somebody's features and in their posture? I think that's a challenge for any actor. But I think Jonas does a great job. And if you watch the film, there are a couple of moments where you're going to see those sort of road to Damascus moments where he's just hit with this revelation, and he just does a great job of bringing that to life, I think.
Yeah.
You can see it in his body language and his face, like what he's feeling. He doesn't even have to say anything. You could just feel it.
Yeah. I thought there was so many ways, that movie really portrayed a lot of like similarities of current state, the world, and just, so many things that people are unhappy with.
Yes.
I really appreciated, the thought of, him speaking up, and because I truly believe, the faith is so damn important, but also the freedom of speech, and obviously the Hitler regime, it really tried to suppress the freedom of speech, and in this case the church itself, control and everything. I thought that was probably the coolest aspect to me in just being able to relate so much to this current state environment.
Yeah, and for my part, I really appreciated the fact that, of course, you had people who were committed Nazis, sold out, sort of evil people. But then you also had people who, it's clear, were trying to do their best, navigate their way through a difficult situation and not really knowing how, wanting to give other people the benefit of the doubt. And so it's sort of shades of compromise, shades of evil, shades of, the way human beings are. I mean, we're complicated. We all make decisions from mixed motives, especially in trying circumstances. And I think we kind of capture that spectrum, a kind of rainbow of motives, so to speak.
Yeah. Just going to let you go next.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, what kind of conversations do you hope the film will inspire in the audience today?
Such a good question. We have we're having conversations about that with our distributor, Angel Studios, right after we brought the movie to them. We actually shot the movie a couple of winters ago in Belgium and Ireland, wrapped it, and then brought it to Angel Studios and asked them to distribute. And we signed that deal with Angel about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, actually. So, so after 12 years in development, things started happening very quickly. And they asked us the same question. And I think one of our conclusions was we want people to see and be inspired by Bonhoeffer's bravery. He was someone who just was a bold, courageous man. And even when the stakes were as high as they could possibly be, he would move forward and he would do what he felt God was calling him to do. So one of our hopes is that it'll inspire people to be Bonhoeffer brave, to take those leaps of faith in the direction they believe God's calling them, and take on giants even when they seem impossible to defeat. Being Bonhoeffer brave is kind of what we're hoping for. And I hope people walk out of the theater wanting to be the best version of themselves. I mean, I think that was what Bonhoeffer achieved in his life. He was able to, even though he was a man of incredible gifts, he faced a lot of adversity and was never really able to fully develop in a lot of ways that he wanted to. He had a lot of failure in his life. He would try to do one thing and it would be blocked, and then he'd go try to do something else, and he'd be opposed. He had a lot of enemies and a lot of well-meaning friends who dragged him down. But he overcame all of those things, and I think that's an inspiring example for us.
Oh, yeah.
I think just seeing the challenge he had that he wanted to take on was so big. People that are going through their hard times now could be like, oh my gosh, if he has the strength to go through this or try to challenge it, then I am going through this thing that's like maybe this big compared to his thing that he wanted to face. Then they're like, all right, maybe I can.
Yeah.
Give
Exactly.
them a little bit of strength and push.
That's the hope. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
hope. Most of us won't face a Hitler in our lifetimes,
Right.
or even a Bishop Mueller. But we might have other challenges that might seem just as intimidating. And I think his example can really inspire people to do the right thing in these challenges.
Yeah. No, I can definitely relate to that. And unfortunately, I've faced a lot of, figurative Hitlers, and I think knowing that people can overcome these and when you hear these other stories of people overcoming these great odds, it's so important. And,
or at least trying to.
Yes.
Yeah.
How was working on this film how has it impacted your own understanding of faith, resistance, and overcoming adversity?
Wow. That's such a good question. I mean, it's absolutely had an impact. Having studied Bonhoeffer's works, Life Together, Cost of Discipleship, two of his famous books, having watched him both walk out his life as it's reported in biographies about him, but also as we've kind of wrestled through it. I think when you're dissecting a person for the purposes of portraying their life on screen, even if in my case you're just doing it over someone's shoulder, you're watching writers sit there and go, well, based on the person whose life I've studied and whose backstory I've written, how would he react in this situation? And it leads to some really interesting discussions and dialogues. And I think those are, I'm not someone who I prefer fiction to nonfiction, and so a lot of my heroes don't exist, but they're kind of composites or ideals of people. Bonhoeffer's an amazing real life human being who lived not that long ago in a civilization not that different from ours. And he was able to live it without compromise for the most part. And that's always going to inspire you when you're feeling like you're faced with impossible choices about which of your principles to give up in order to, sort of do your best in the situation. And Bonhoeffer faced the same dilemma. I think he did about as well as anyone could do in navigating those situations. So,
did you have any major roadblocks when doing this film? In 12 years, I imagine there's probably so many.
So many.
A long time.
So many, major roadblocks, major crossroads, and also major, what's the right way to describe them? Things that looked like the right thing at the time, that if we had taken that road, would have destroyed the project, and which God spared us from. Many things like that, many bullets dodged. So we look back over the life of this project, and if it had been up to us, we started this project in 2012. By 2013, we had a director, a script, and most of the money raised. So we could have brought the film out in 2014.
Wow.
And I think it probably would have just disappeared. It would have never made a mark. We almost started shooting the film about a month before COVID locked everything down. So that was another bullet dodged. We could have been in production in the middle of COVID, or we could have brought the film out right as COVID was breaking, and nobody was going to the theaters. I mean, all of those things were things that could have happened on realistic timelines that we were spared. So it was a long process of persevering, but attentively, and not hammering on doors that were clearly being closed, and being careful to dodge things that were coming at us that looked good, but that one or the other of us felt were was not the right way to go. So and we were often saved from pitfalls and arrows despite ourselves. So God's hand was very much on this project from day one.
So in the beginning, I was just wondering, did you, when you were younger, were you into history and stuff? And then did you get pulled into this? And when you first started or thinking about this is a story that you wanted to make into a film, did you have a friend that you threw the idea at and you're like, let's do this? What was that like?
Right. No, I was actually, the couple who started this whole project rolling is a wonderful, dynamic, and bright combo, a package deal called Mano and Camille Camporis. And they were the ones who originally had the idea to do this film. When they reached out to me, All they had to do was say, major motion picture about Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and that's when it clicked for me. I didn't need more of a pitch than that. And I think that's been true for everybody who's been drawn to this project, whatever their life experience or background. As soon as you say a picture about Bonhoeffer, if they know who he is, they're in. And then it just takes reading the script and realizing, yeah, they have to do this movie. I mean, we assembled a crew and a cast with collective talent, far above our weight class. The guy who's the director of photography for our film is a guy named John Matheson, who's a Hollywood legend and was the director of photography on both Gladiator 1 and Gladiator 2, along with a bunch of other films you've seen and loved, and with a lot of other famous directors, including Ridley Scott. Now he's worked with Todd Komarnicki, which is to his credit. And he actually left our set the day we wrapped to go to work on Gladiator 2.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
He's going to have 2 films in the theater on the same day. Gladiator 2 is opening the same weekend we are. So, but that's just one of our amazing creative talents around this film. John Beard, our set designer, our costumer, Blue Murray, our editor, everybody everybody that came and worked on this picture is a master at their craft and really brought their A game. And I think it's we left it all on screen. It just looks like a bigger and more expensive picture than it is. And I think it's got everything you want in a film.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like whether you're in history or not, you're going to enjoy it. Yeah. Regardless.
The tension.
Yeah.
The suspense is incredible.
Like, what's going to happen next? Oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? What is he going to do?
I've noticed, because we're pretty new to Angel Studios. We watched a couple other movies, Sound of Freedom and a couple others. And we actually just subscribed and want to join the guild. And I noticed all the quality and the content, everything we watched so far. It's like, it's so top notch. And there's probably so many people out there that haven't watched anything in Angel Studios that, man, I couldn't recommend it enough. And, I love the feel good aspect of it, especially that movie as well.
It's just so deep and inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When we first started talking to Angel Studios, who we love working with, by the way, and to any filmmakers out there, you got to give them a look if you're looking for someone to distribute your film. I would say one of the things that really drew us in was their motto is to make and release films that amplify light, and we really like that. I think our film does that, and that's kind of what they're known for and making themselves known for. So, that was a plus when we were first talking to them. They have a terrific attitude about the kinds of projects that they want to release.
Yeah, that was kind of why we reached out to Angel Studios, just because the spreading of hope, because there's so many people in this day and age that, everywhere, a lot of, especially with the addiction crisis and the drug crisis and whatnot, people need that hope, because without that faith, without hope, it's a difficult road.
It's a dark world without that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Spread the light.
Yes. Yeah. It's like quite literally one of the sayings that we have, just trying to spread the light and,
beacon of hope.
Trying
something. Yeah.
We think there's a lot of power in testimony, and knowing if we can make it through what we've been through, you can make it through what you've been through. And, a lot of our stories have focused on that, stories of resiliency. And obviously this movie really exemplifies that quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear you say that. I agree. I think resilience is one of Bonhoeffer's, strongest character traits. He was able to adapt and overcome through an incredible array of circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Do you think if Bonhoeffer was alive today, what issues do you think he'd be most passionate about? That's a difficult question.
No, it is. It is. It's good. So hard to. He was such a person of his time. He was German, so. That's a whole nother set of issues. I think he'd be very focused on human trafficking. I think that's something he'd be keenly interested in. I don't know though. It's so difficult to say. I think he'd be for victims of injustice and against their oppressors, but you never know what someone's going to focus on or be called into.
Yeah.
Who knows how different Bonhoeffer's life would have been if he'd never come to America.
Yeah.
and never met Frank Fisher at seminary, and never gone to Abyssinian Baptist Church and heard Adam Clayton Powell preach about the injustices being suffered by African American victims of racism in this country in the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very specific crucible for someone to be in, especially if they're from outside the country and had never heard of gospel music, let alone how the gospel was being lived out by African Americans in that time. So I don't know, it probably depends on conversations he was having or things that he was seeing or churches he was attending. I don't know. It's a good question, though.
That is a good question.
Food for thought.
So Bonhoeffer is often idolized as a flawless hero. Did the film explore any of his flaws or any of his internal struggles that might challenge his perception?
Oh yeah, I think one of the fatal mistakes you can make with a story about someone as beloved as Bonhoeffer is to try and portray them as some sort of, flawless person who never changes throughout the film.
Right.
I mean, the whole heart of a story, any story really, is how the hero grows, how they change, how what confronts them changes them. Yeah, I think Bonhoeffer was brash. He often rushed into things and then regretted it. His mouth gets him in trouble a lot in the movie. And yeah, I think he absolutely is very human, but he does learn from his mistakes and eventually arrives at a place of peace with them. But I do think you're gonna you'll recognize the points at which he realizes he's put his foot in it and tries to turn around and do better. He's one of the fun subplots is the ongoing tension between Bonhoeffer and his bishop, played by August Diehl, Bishop Niemöller. The way they butt heads is a great part of the driver of the story. And gosh, what a fun thing to see those two actors of that caliber just go at it on screen. So yeah, I think that's and then there's tension within his family, even a little bit of tension with his twin sister Sabina. And I think it's all done very well and very enjoyable.
If you could go back and change one creative decision in the film, was there anything you would want to change? Because I know from a podcast standpoint, there's always something I wish I did differently.
Maybe. Yeah.
Well, for me, there's a lot, but not about the movie, about our the way we do things. Sure. So many things, But.
Yeah, I if I'm too honest with you, I'll get in trouble. Because this was such a creative collaboration, and my role was, I was sort of certainly one of the junior voices. So I don't want to criticize the people who really made this happen. I'm trying to think if I could get away with saying something that wouldn't be too. Okay, here's one. And I can say this because I got laughed at every meeting where I brought this up. But I'm still going to say it because I'm a fan, and I hope maybe he can hear this. But I very much wanted to cast Justin Bieber in one of the roles as one of the German members of Bonhoeffer's inner circle there in his family. I thought he'd be great. Kind of looks German. I thought it would kind of help with publicity if we had someone of his stature in the film. So as I say, I got laughed at every meeting where I brought that up. Justin, if you're listening, I tried.
Next one.
Next. And as it turns out, we made a decision early on that we weren't going to try and cast big American names in this film to act the German parts. It was going to be a European production, and we really wanted to have Germans playing the Germans in the film on the side of good and in the resistance against Hitler. And I'm so glad we did. I mean, it just gives the film a depth and an authenticity that I don't think we could have achieved. Ironically, a lot of the bad Germans, including Hitler himself, are played by Irish and English actors. So we sort of flipped the scripts.
Interesting.
A little bit, yeah. So I don't think Justin would have fit in with the cast we wound up with.
Right.
But what could have been? I would have loved to make that happen.
Yes.
I don't know what his German accent's like, but
I'd like to hear it. It's funny. But it's funny. We're watching it, and talking about the actors in there, and I was like, that's Flula?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, I know him. I like follow him and stuff. So that was interesting. I like seeing how he can just morph into any character in like any movie, any
He's
show
such a
or
good
whatever.
actor.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that was fun seeing that too. Recognizing someone in there was fun.
Yeah, if you saw him in Suicide Squad or Pitch Perfect or
Yes.
doing one of his many appearances on Conan,
Yeah.
you think, oh, he's just a kind of lightweight, comedian.
So this funny, goofy guy, but yeah.
But boy, the depth he brings to that
Mm-hmm.
that role is amazing. I mean, he's
Yeah.
just right in
I
there
enjoyed
with
that.
us. But yeah, keeping up and doing a great job. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a treat to have him in the film. He's a pro, total professional.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, I had a couple, another pretty solid question. I really like this. The film depicts the complacency in many of the church leaders within the Nazi regime. What conversations do you hope this will spark about the role of religious institutions during the time of crisis?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, this is another point where some of what happened is applicable and some isn't. I mean, the Germans had and have a state church. So the bishops, anyone wearing a collar is drawing a salary from the state, just like any other government employee. So there's a kind of connectedness between the churches and the state that we don't. It's hard for us to grasp in the United States because we have this ideal of separation. Yeah. So it was. I think it was harder for them to try and come up with a way to in good conscience separate what they were doing from what the state was doing. And so it was really revolutionary for Bonhoeffer and later Niemöller to say, no, we're standing against this and we're going to do church a different way. And if that means breaking away from the state church and the institution that we've grown up with and loved our entire lives, then we'll do it. Mm-hmm. And it's for some, I'm sure, hard to imagine God calling you to a place where you're doing that, where you're defying everyone else around you who believes that they're doing what God wants them to do, but you're standing separately and alone. And I think that's there's a moment for that, and there are moments where that has to happen in our time. And I'm not a pastor, so I don't know what that feels like, or spiritually what that journey's like. But I do hope that our film can at least inspire some conversations around that. And if people do find themselves in a position where they feel like that's inevitable, I hope the film provides some guidance and inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As we know, this world needs all too much.
Yeah.
Ironically, we're recording this the day after Election Day.
Yeah.
And not trying to get political by any means, but what specific actions do you hope viewers will take after watching the film?
Yeah. Watching it again, hopefully at full price. No, just kidding. I do hope we get repeat viewers. I really do.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I think, and then of course telling all their family and friends to watch it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so hard to say. I feel like this film has a lot of dimensions and a lot of messages.
Yeah.
We talked about a couple of them, including being brave and sort of keep an eye out for what direction God's taking you through in a difficult time. But I think, one of Bonhoeffer's watchwords is, watch and pray and then act. And I think that's probably a good way to live your life. Yes. Observe, home in on what you feel like the Lord's drawing your attention to. Pray about it and then act. Instead of being, as Bonhoeffer himself so often was, just kind of crashing into a situation based on instinct and then having to kind of work your way out of it. So yeah, maybe that's a good word to leave on in regard to that particular question.
Like stand up for what you believe in.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit more of that, at least in the last few years, and even more so. I'm noticing there's a lot more presence of people talking God and stuff, because it seems like I'm seeing it a lot more prevalent on, even on television and on
having a voice and not being scared to speak your voice.
Yeah, because it used to be not long ago, like just a few years ago, it seemed like people really weren't talking about church and faith and whatnot, and it just seems to be so much more prevalent everywhere.
Yeah. Yep.
not just within movies either. I'm noticing it with my kids. I actually had one of my kids watch the movie with us, and I thought it was a great film for him. He's 15, so it was quite appropriate for him. We see like the football team locally here. We see these kids. They're saying a prayer before the football game, and I couldn't believe it. I'm hoping the world keeps moving into this direction of faith, and because when you have something to lean into and cast your anxieties into, people don't realize, and I don't try to push religion necessarily on anybody, but at the same time, I like to say what has worked for us. We started going to church December of last year. It's going through some adversity ourselves, and it's changed the trajectory of our lives completely.
Amazing.
Yep, it has.
Well, it's great to hear.
And it's just believing in something positive.
Yep.
Yes.
Even if people don't want to believe in God, that's fine. We don't want to push that on anyone, but just having hope that there's something there that's going to help guide you.
Yeah, it does. I have to say, you watch a film like this and you think, boy, when you're in that darker hole, when you're in that difficult circumstance, how do you make it without some kind of faith?
I feel like you can't. You have to have something there, like holding you, bringing you along, showing you the light, just something that's kind of guiding you.
Yeah.
In my case, a lot of the time that's her. 'Cause she's always so darn positive. But
there's a great moment that's a little bit of it's captured in the trailer. But Bonhoeffer is introduced to his new roommate in prison, who happens to be one of the scientists working for Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this very interesting exchange that ends with Bonhoeffer saying, your time has passed. And as for the world that we live in, the light came into the world and the darkness has not overcome it, which is a reference to Jesus. And then his evil roommate says, look around you, my friend. How much light do you see?
Mm-hmm.
And it's this chilling kind of glimpse into a perspective of someone who thinks there is no real good in this world, and the only thing you can do is try and make the most of it in your own way and in your own time, even if that's regarded by others as evil. And I think it's just there's this great kind of clash of worldviews: hopelessness versus hope, despair versus inspiration, good versus evil, ultimately. And I think they're contrasted in very creative ways in the movie.
Right.
Yeah. If I just wanted to give you the opportunity to say where this is viewable, where are people able to watch this movie? Obviously, it's going to be in theaters.
Yes. Yeah, it'll be in theaters across the country, wide release on Friday, November 22. If you go to angel.com/Bonhoeffer, you'll get a link to a page that will have a box you can enter your zip code or address in, and it will show you show times and dates in your area. You can buy tickets directly using that link for a time that works for you. And I believe there's still a discount available on those tickets. So, and the discount's dropping every day. So, if you know when you want to see the film, I'd book it now. But that's where you can go. It'll be in theaters for a while. And if you're a fan and you'd like to help, please do everything you can to see the film on opening weekend. In some markets, that's Thursday the 21st. But in most places, it's Friday the 22nd, Saturday the 23rd, Sunday the 24th. Those are the most important days for us to attract an audience to the film in theaters. So please see it on one of those days if you can.
Cool. I appreciate it, man. And it's cool to talk to somebody when you can tell within 30 seconds how enthusiastic somebody is about their product or whatever they've been involved in. And I like seeing the enthusiasm behind you and the way you describe this. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice to see.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
interrupt,
but I am. I'm bubbling over with enthusiasm for it because it's such a great film. It's a quality film. It's really well made. And sometimes you go to the theater and you sit down and you're ready to watch a film and the filmmakers meant well and it's got a great message, but it's just not. You sort of stumble over the quality of the writing or the cinematography, the acting. This film, you're going to relax because it's just so well done. You just know you're in the hands of master craftspeople, and it'll take you on a journey that will inspire you and uplift you, and you'll just lose yourself in the story, which is what I look for in a great movie. And this movie has that quality. So,
oh yeah, that's when I say you just feel every second of that movie, you're in it, like you're sucked in it. You know, you can't turn it off because you're like, you got to know what happens. You got to watch the whole thing. It's amazing. I love it.
That's great to hear. That makes me very happy. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask real quick, just for the viewers, what other movies have you been involved in that you want to throw out there?
Oh my gosh, so many. The other film that's really on my heart right now is a lovely documentary about the life of Rivero Clemente, who was a Pittsburgh Pirate, legendary baseball player in the 60s and 70s, played for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and lived an amazing life as a civil rights icon as well as a tremendous sportsman, and a really wonderful and generous philanthropist. Great life story. Ends in well, I don't want to drop another spoiler, but just a great movie. And it's not out yet, but keep an eye open for it. Yeah. And for other great films from the amazing director of that picture. Yeah, that's the other one. That's we opened at the South by Southwest Film Festival earlier this year in Austin, Texas, and won the Audience Choice Award. And I'm sure we'll go on to great things. So
cool.
Amazing.
Keep an eye out for that.
We will watch that one too.
Absolutely. Well, right. John, I appreciate your time so much. I know, I think we're 30-minute schedule. We're a little over, but I appreciate it very much. And
everyone go watch Bonhoeffer.
Yes, please support it. It's for a good cause. Yep. It's a great company and awesome producers. So thank you, John.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, wonderful talking to you. Thanks.